I'm going to go ahead and quiet myself down because Rebecca and Squad are going to run the show. But welcome everybody to the Regenerati News Hour. Sorry we missed you all last week, but it was a nice time to take a pause and really looking forward to hearing from the Science and Registry team who've been doing really outstanding work, oftentimes without lots of fanfare, but things are coming. So we're going to get a nice sneak peek today of what's moving and what's going to show up in your inboxes in the not too distant future, I believe. So anyhow, I'll sign off and listen in, and just like the rest of you, Rebecca, it's all yours.
Thanks, Dave. I like the less fanfare. We're we're working on the fanfare for sure because we get really excited about all this work and are bound and determined to get everybody else super engaged. So a lot of what we get to dig into today is just that, is how we were trying to open various doors. So I think it'll be really awesome to have the whole team, everybody here to share. And Giselle's coming too here in just a minute. She's running a minute behind, but we've got the whole crew. And what that means is that we get to cover really the full range of what's going on with the team. So I'm going to be able to let everybody speak for themselves, but I'd love to orient the crew here. I see we also have Sophia. What's up, Sophia? Um, to think about as kind of a way of getting us thinking about the registry and science work is kind of the who we are and what we're up to. And so the who we are is acting as, this guardrail approach to an ecosystem service registry, and being Regen Network's ecosystem service registry, meaning that we are uniquely tied to the ledger as the public proof of stake blockchain, and that we have this marketplace application of the Regen Registry app functionality. So we've got all of these pieces, but what is something that we're going to also dig into today is the Regen Registry guide. Really, the very much like boots on the ground, how to produce and create eco credits and methodology. So full spectrum. Really excited to dig in. We're going to spend a little over half the time sharing, each of us, kind of introing ourselves and sharing what's going on, what's being worked on, what to look forward to, what problems are being solved, and then end, as always, with a Q&A. So be jotting down your questions. We're always so eager to hear what others have to say. So I think first we'll start off with Sam. He is going to have to jump, so we'll get him going on the registry app. And Giselle is going to be sharing about Regen lands and a really awesome visit she's made with some land stewards and project developers, really thinking about credit classes and project development. We're going to have Ned talking about DeSci and his work in environmental stewardship. I'm going to have Tika up and rocking it, telling us about the registry guide. And then I'm going to take a minute to talk about the kind of introductory support that we're working on as well. So I welcome everybody to this space. Thank you for coming and joining us. We're super eager to get moving. So all that being said, I would love to pass to Sam. So let's do like one quirky thing about you, maybe. I love making this feel more human. And then talking about registry apps. So like the functionality being worked on and what that means for Regen Registry users. So take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Becca. Man, a quirky thing about me. I don't know. That's a good question. I would say maybe a fun, quirky thing is that one of my favorite uh, foods is peanut M&Ms, and M's, and so I go on a lot of road trips. And if I ever go to a gas station, the thing that I always get without fail is peanut M&Ms. So maybe that's my quirky thing. But yeah, so I'm here to share a little bit about the registry app and talk about what's coming in the pipeline in the next few months for the launch of our marketplace. And so maybe backing up a few steps, just wanted to talk a little bit about the structure of Regen Registry. And so, when we think about Regen Registry, there's, a few components to it because ecosystem service registry has a lot of components. There's the program that helps people develop projects and issue credits. There's the scientific component and methodologies that are developed that helps us measure change in ecological state. And then there's the place that we're storing all of this information and transacting credits, and that is kind of what we would call the registry app. And so the underlying structure to the Regen registry is the Regen ledger, which is our blockchain infrastructure that stores all information related to claims made on ecological state, so that we can have that open and auditable trail for claims that are being made on our platform. And the registry app is the front end application that integrates with the blockchain layer that allows stakeholders to use Regen Ledger to register projects, buy and sell credits on an open marketplace, engage in network governance, upload data, store data, and really like view what's actually happening behind these claims. And so we've been working pretty hard the last few months to prepare for our marketplace launch. And we're doing that by building a lot of functionality around the eco credit module. And so what the eco credit module allows you to do is it allows you to create credit classes, create projects associated with those credit classes, and issue batches for those credit classes. And so we've been working on building, front-end interfaces that allow you to come in and create your own credit class, upload metadata that's tied to that credit class, create a project page and upload things like your project registration, location about the project, basic data and information about the project, who the actors are that are managing that project. And then, over time, you can start to upload monitoring reports, verification reports, and issue new credit batches, all with our front-end interfaces. And so that kind of is the first layer in, the marketplace, which is actually creating eco credits. And so layering on top of that, the next thing that we have is, our trading functionality and our marketplace functionality. And so in August, when our marketplace launches, you'll be able to come in and actually, once credits have been issued, sell those credits. So you can create sell orders. You can list your credits at a fixed price, and buyers can come in and purchase those credits. Now, what can they do when they purchase those credits? They can send them to other addresses. They can retire those credits. They can put them into a basket and then send them over to IBC. They could, do a whole bunch of things. And so these are kind of the things that we're all working on with our registry app. And so with 4.0 launching in, mid-July, we should start to see a lot of this functionality become live on our registry app. So excited for folks to start to be able to use that, start to be able to see it. And definitely reach out if you have any questions. Thanks.
I think it would be cool to share too, Sam, one of the specific features to look forward to about like credit batches, just to give people a taste of what's to come. Do you mind sharing a touch about that?
Yeah. Do you have a more
Or is it
specific
too
question
soon?
about credit batches?
So
Well,
being
I
able to
just,
like really like see your batch as though you like have a cart, and you're able to like see the credits and move between the interface and and kind of the blockchain really seamlessly. I think it's a really cool part that I'm excited to see come about.
uh, yeah. So, I guess maybe what I'm hearing is just, like where's this information stored? So really like everything that's shown in the registry app is actually stored on the blockchain. So like when you view a credit batch page, all of the data that is shown there is actually stored on Regen Ledger. So you can see the issuance date, you can see the monitoring report, the verification report, you can see, who has held those credits, what state they're in, whether they're in a retirable state, a tradable state. You can see who's previously owned those. You can see what price they're selling for. You can see who issued them, things like that. And so, was that kind of what you were going for, Becca?
Yeah, totally. And I know it's something that like you, Tika, and I talk a lot about is accessibility, and having these like really approachable interfaces make make blockchain less scary for some of the non-Web3 users. And I'm super excited to see that play out and to see different users interact with that once it's live. So yeah, totally, that's awesome. Great. I want to give like Tika, Giselle, or Ned to pop in to say anything about Registry app before moving on to Giselle. Does anybody have anything there? Cool. Sweet. Well, I feel like when we think about the Registry app, we're thinking about like when the projects are producing credits and how those credits move. And so we're going to bounce to kind of more of the beginning phases, and with Giselle, thinking about when land stewards and project developers and methodology developers are trying to make decisions early on about what kinds of projects to pursue and what is a viable project, like carbon or otherwise. And so, Giselle, I would love to have you come up and share about Regen Lands, the problem that's being solved by this tool, and tying that in with your trip out to meet with land stewards and project developers, really like getting a solid dose of the needs and barriers, and how that has affected kind of your passion around the Regen Lands project. And looks like you're on a good. Awesome. Yeah, come on, Giselle.
Yeah, sure. You hear me well? Because this is the first time I'm using this microphone. Is it okay?
You're great.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. So, as I'm the head of science here at Regen Network. I am a biologist and a landscape ecologist. And early on, when I joined Regen in 2018, I realized there was a big gap between the academic research and the information that's coming around the sequestration potential of the different environments and management practices all around the world, and the application of that information, right? So through years, I developed this methodology for quantifying soil organic carbon in grazing systems based on a minimum amount of samples and a satellite calibration. We kind of leverage the best of the satellite imagery and remote sensing and GIS in order to improve the accuracy of the and to estimate the soil organic carbon stocks. I realized, despite a couple of projects where the landlords really know what's happening on their land in terms of potential, and when they decide to enroll into credits, for many other land stewards, there's a barrier there where they don't even know if the potential of sequestration worth the work of taking the samples and doing all the and you know, having all the cost of sampling and enrolling projects. So in order to kind of fill the gap between the academic world and the applied science and the urgency, given the urgency of monitoring, you know, I realized there's more than 5 million hectares Argentina alone under holistic management, and most or all of that land has not even sold a single for carbon, and they are sequestering carbon. So the bottleneck there is not about the implementation of regenerative practices. We all know there are a lot of projects all around the world, and having, you know, the proper incentives will also trigger others to transition into regenerative practices. So not about more like a bottleneck about our land stewards and project proponents to have the ability to estimate this organic carbon sequestration and to estimate the costs of sampling and what it means to enroll into a carbon. So with that spirit, I started developing an idea, and we are now starting to kind of scope the MRV around creating a kind of a mapping interface that will be based on science research in order to generate accurate models for the estimation of the potential carbon sequestration for all the different regenerative practices. We are going to be starting grazing systems because I already created a demo, and we have created a very big database all the papers reporting sequestration rates in grazing systems under holistic management, AMP grazing, voicing grazing, etc. So we are going to be improving that with other scientists, and the intention is that by creating not only sequestration rates potential for your land, so if you could kind of easily go into a user is where you have a global map and you can zoom in and go into your land and draw your polygon of your project, you would get the suitability of the different regenerative practices that you could be implementing there, and you could choose if you are already implementing one and get the outcomes. Not carbon. In the future we are targeting water holding capacity, biodiversity, etc., but we're just going to start with something, which is the carbon. With that, we think it's going to be super useful for land stewards to make their estimations of costs and revenues, and also to see if it makes sense because of the potential sequestration to enroll into carbon credits or to go other types of credits. So in the aim of expanding beyond carbon, knowing that most, not most, but in many areas of the world, the carbon is one indicator that it's not going to reflect all the benefits and the ecosystem health. So they might need to transition to other types of credits. That is also something that we are willing to develop and we to open. And having these maps will also kind of show the areas in the world where other types of outcomes need to be assessed and valued even more than carbon. So it's a research purpose here in order to understand also at regional and global scales what it means to implement regenerative practices, have the ability to model different scenarios of adoption of regenerative practices and really understand how that affects the climate change fight, for instance. So that's more on the research side or the academics, but on the more like functional side of things for the land stewards and for the project proponents in order to be able to estimate for their own projects. It's super valuable, and also for buyers to they are buying, right? So we're always trying to create the proper transparency here and the knowledge that needs to be created.
So great, Giselle. That's awesome scoping for what that project, like the problems that it's solving, and I'm really excited for you to be sharing about this, because there's more kind of history. Like this has been a project that's been really in motion for over a year now. Giselle and I had worked together with various carbon plus grasslands projects, and every time and time again, the need was the same. They need to be able to estimate potential sequestration and costs. And I'd love, Giselle, for you to take a minute to tie that kind of like the historical like need of this with this present tense connection that you've made with Argentinian land stewards and project developers just within this past month.
Yeah. Well, there was a really gathering in one farm 2 hours away from Mar del Plata, which is where I live, San Antonio, and there was people from the Asociación Grass-Fed Argentina, which is kind of a group of people trying to help land stewards to implement holistic management and voicing grazing and AMP grazing in the area. And there were different farmers there and agronomists from different, so some agronomists more focused on holistic management. Some of them were more like in PRV or AMP, grazing is the voicing grazing. And they were all kind of they were all sharing their results at the gathering. We went through the lands and we saw there in situ all the regrowth of the grass. It has it's a grassland that 3 years ago was deeply overgrazed or under cropland, and after 3 cycles came greener and biodiverse, and so it's beautiful. Even the birds, everything is super beautiful, and they were showing terms of, for instance, the yield, the meat that they are increasing the sales. So it's fantastic from my point of view. And they were, so I was invited there to talk a little bit about the possibilities for them to enrolling into credits as a plus, as a even more a better way to increase the sustainability of the farm, even though are already doing great. And at the end of the meeting, there were a lot of questions around, the programmatic things of these credits. And there's a lot of inflation in Argentina. The peso currency is going down, dollars are going up, and the price of the credits are also going up in time. There are some registries that are asking for them to sign contracts where if there's any reversal in the future, for instance, so they need to sign for permanence, and they need to sign to kind of buy credits in the case of future reversal. So all of that encompassed with a totally blind possibly like a blind scenario of whether they are going to be capturing or not in their areas. And it's a perfect combination of conditions for them to not afford any credits. And so we were kind of having a lot of discussions of different alternatives, possibilities. We from Regen Network trying to address all those, and we are being more flexible in the way we are stating for our credit class for carbon plus grasslands. But we know that there's a further discussion that needs to take place between the land stewards and the buyers, because there's a risk that needs to be addressed, and also it has to do with the economics of the farms and the real possibilities. So how do we create a proper incentive that it's not prohibitive for these land stewards and makes sense for everyone, and also the risks, the kind of the reversal risk for the buyers, etc. And we are having a gathering on 29th of July in Buenos Aires, where people from Savory have, and many private organizations, and the Asociación Grass-Fed is also present. Well, they are organizing the event, in fact. And I will be there presenting, we'll be talking about and the different blockers. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I hope to be working actively on that, and we will to address this with our community. So stay tuned.
Totally. Thanks. Just awesome. Thanks for sharing. It's really grounding just to be able to share those reflections from the trenches of your work, and from you really like having FaceTime with these folks, and understanding their needs. And it moves us really well into thinking about the environmental stewardship initiative. So somebody comes in and they're trying to understand their potential sequestration. Perhaps they're in an area, soil type, climate where they might not be able to expect much carbon being sequestered, but those regenerative practices are still hugely beneficial to the ecosystem. And so our own Ed Horning has been stewarding the environmental stewardship initiative, and I want to bring him up to talk about that, as well as the DSI community that he's trying to kind of map out our involvement in. So I did forget, Giselle, for you to say something quirky about yourself. So Giselle, real quick, something quirky about Giselle.
What do you mean with quirky?
So
That much
Sam likes peanut M&Ms. What's a weird food that Giselle likes?
Oh, weird food. No, I can say this. I eat everything. There's nothing I don't eat. That's a popularity.
I love it. Thanks,
Yeah,
Giselle.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. Super
Ned, you
varied.
get Ned, you get to share something quirky about yourself, and then I feel like it would be awesome to share about the gap that environmental stewardship is filling in the space, and your practice, your passion around a practice-based approach, and then what's moving with DeSci right now. So, Ned, come on up.
All right, thank you, Becca. So start off with quirky. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind was in my previous job on my last day, we had a kind of a group gathering. Everybody's talking about, what I've been doing, and we're talking about our friendships and all that. And we went around the room and everybody had to tell one, in one word basically, or one phrase, something that summarized me. And one of my colleagues, it used to be the former director for the group that I worked with, her comment was that I was quirky. So I guess my quirky thing is that I'm quirky.
Nice, Ned.
So anyhow, I guess I'm not sure if the Regen people would agree with that, but something tells me they might. So with this environmental stewardship initiative that we're working on, the basic idea is that it's an alternative to the carbon credits. And the idea is that the focus is really on ecosystem regeneration. So we're looking at carbon as an ecosystem function, from the perspective of ecosystem function rather than ecosystem service. So carbon credits look at sequestration and storage as an ecosystem service. We're looking at carbon as the function of carbon, and that's basically embracing the carbon cycle, the entire cycle, not just half of the cycle of the sequestration and storage. And it's open for all sorts of ecosystem regeneration. It's not only agriculture. It's not only, and certainly it's not only carbon related. It could be biodiversity. It could be water quality. It could be air quality. It could be just about anything you can think of. And what we're trying to do is lower the bar to make it very easy for people to benefit from regenerative practices. And one of the components of the environmental stewardship program is that we do require data collection, but it's not the data is not used like a carrot and a stick like it would be in a carbon program, where if there's somebody that's doing very good regenerative work, but they're not sequestering enough carbon, they're effectively being punished because they might be paying more for soil samples than they'd be getting back in carbon credits. The way we're looking at data is the data should be collected, and those data should be used to improve our knowledge about the practice. So the idea is that a portion of the credit sales would go for data collection and data analysis, so we can better understand how practices are actually impacting the environment. And again, the thinking is that if someone's doing a practice that has been shown, is in the peer-reviewed literature been shown to have regenerative qualities, if it's not performing like we expect, then we should understand why it's not performing well. We shouldn't, say, well, you didn't do a good job, so you're not going to get any money. We should collect data and understand what's going wrong, because we're working on the assumption that the stewards that we're working with, they have a genuine interest in doing, they want to have a positive impact on global ecosystems. So if things are not working well, that they really want to improve those systems. And this ties into this DeSci initiative that I'm working on. And the basic idea is that we're trying to create a community of scientists who support ecosystem regeneration. And there's a movement, it's decentralized science. It's been around for a few years, but it's really been gaining traction just this year, pretty much in the beginning of the year. There are lots of DeSci events, especially at the ETH, the various ETH conferences. And there's one coming up in Boston that is convenient for me since I live in Vermont. So we're hopefully going to have a presence there. And right now, most of the DeSci work is around kind of the biopharma and biomedical fields. I'm not aware of any group that's really focused on ecosystem regeneration at this time. So what I want to do is start with a working group, just get a bunch of scientists together so we can start brainstorming and figure out how we can create some sort of decentralized science organization to support ecosystem regeneration. So if folks are interested in that, please contact me, and hopefully we can work together.
Ned, I feel like it's really great with this kind of work to offer up, like, could you offer up an example, like a scenario for environmental stewardship? And then similarly with like DeSci, is there an example of like an activity that you imagine that kind of like DeSci community that we would foster would do?
Sure. So in environmental stewardship, I'm currently working on a methodology. It's to support sheep grazing in vineyard systems. So we're working with a group called Fibershed, uh, and we're focused on vineyards in Northern California. And the idea is that we want to encourage people to use this high density grazing, high density over short periods of time grazing in vineyards. And they would start the grazing after the grape harvest, and they would use the grazing in place of mowing and also in place of hand picking kind of dead leaves off the vines. And there's evidence in the peer-reviewed literature that it has just fantastic regenerative outcomes. So instead of trying to measure those outcomes, we just think that the advantages have been shown, and we should just endorse and incentivize the practice. So the credit that we've developed right now, it's called the kilo sheep hour, and it's basically the number of sheep times the number of hours divided by 1,000. So it's a very simple thing. It's something that we can easily verify, and hopefully create markets around to get money back into the stewards and also the people that are doing the shepherds that are doing the grazing. And in DeSci, I mean, there are a number of ways that this DeSci community could be supporting the work that we're doing in Regen. But one use case would be, with these environmental stewardship projects, portion of the credit will be set aside to collect data, and this DeSci group could then be used to, they could get those data, they could do the analysis, they could do the actual analysis to see what the relationship between the practice and the outcomes are. So it would be a community of scientists that would really be focused on those types of activities. So right now, the way we would work is, we'd find a university group somewhere doing, that might have an interest, and we talk with them and get it going. And, for something else, we might go to another university, and it's actually quite cumbersome right now. But if we could have a community of scientists that we know that their focus is ecosystem regeneration, and it would be a multidisciplinary group of scientists, then it would be kind of the go-to place for getting some of this work done.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I think that we're all really excited to see where that's moving, and these major science initiatives that Giselle and Ned have shared about, that like really reflect the spectrum of work on the registry. Everything from rigorous carbon to practice based to building a community within all of that work. So thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. I want us to turn to Tika, the backbone of Regen Registry is the registry guide. So I'd love to have Tika come up, and after she shares something quirky about herself, is sharing about the significance of this guide, what it provides to Regen Registry users, and then maybe like a section or something in it that that you're particularly excited about as you've led this charge. So Tika, come on up.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Becca. I will have to fight Sam for peanut M&Ms. That's also my go-to whenever I stop somewhere and need a quick snack. And besides that, something quirky is I kind of have an insatiable urge to go in water whenever I'm near it. I've swam in Lake Tahoe all year round. So yeah, if there's water, I'll jump in it. And anybody else is welcome to join me. And for the guide, yeah, that's really been an amazing team effort to pull this together. And what we have done is migrated that to a Getbook format to allow contributors to and stakeholders to participate in building and editing this. And it's a guide to who common folks who are engaging in or with the registry, as well as the common processes that folks engage with the registry. So creating a methodology is obviously a huge part of that, and then going through the peer review process, and then we also have a nice methodology library that we'll be building out as people develop methodologies with us and are open to sharing them with that library, which will again provide super guidance for those who are developing methodologies to see what's out there and to be able to read through those and to be able to have those as models as they're building their own methodologies, as well as see who those authors are and connect with them and see if they want to, answer some questions or collaborate on something else. So we really see it as a place for us to start to or continue to put pieces in there to guide folks with how to make the most of engaging with Regen Network, and then put it to the community to help build it and continue to foster collaboration and growth and ultimately larger scale ecological restoration, which is what we're all here for. So some parts that are going in the next few days that we've been working on that I'm really excited about are methodology development, the process, kind of an overview of what that means, and then some definitions about the credit class, what that means, and what that should include, as well as the project development. And again, what does that mean? Who are the actors that are associated with that commonly, and how, and sort of what is a standard project that's run with a methodology guiding it look like in order to create credits. So yeah, that's kind of a brief overview.
That's awesome. Thank you. Could you share like how we've worked on this guide, like how it's different from how other programs work, like how other registries work, even in terms of like the language choices we've made and like how you see this registry guide is different?
Yeah, so this registry guide is really reflective of the registry in general being different in that it is a guide. It's not a how-to manual of required steps. It's a lot of thoughts about how things could be done and how things are done in ways that create different values to credit, basically. So the more data that you're supplying, the more transparent you are about that data, those things will add value to your credit in the end. And so how to get that data, how to collect it, and how to share it with people in order to create that is a big part of this. But we do not have requirements on what you have to do to work with the registry. It's really up to different folks to decide the path that they want to take and how much data they want to collect, how much they want to share. It's all open, whereas other registries, it's more strict standards of required steps that somebody would have to follow in order to work with that registry.
Awesome. Thanks, Tia. That's so helpful. And if anybody wants to check out the guide as well as credit classes and the methodology library that Tia was talking about, you can find it at library.regen.network. And as she said, we've got pieces coming. We're all working really hard to answer a lot of questions and get that mapped out. So we're excited about that. I want to give us time for questions because we've covered a lot of ground. So I want to take 2 minutes to share about some introductory work that our team is doing. Tika and I are working together on really the beginning moments of when someone engages with Regen Registry and science, and creating a suite of intro videos. So it's a lot more accessible than thumbing through materials, so that people can get a sense of what we are, what we do, why we do it, and then how to engage from there. The other big effort is Tika and I are working on a homepage that would be kind of a stand-alone Notion space that would be really accessible and evolving, and act as a landing space and a launch pad for coming in and self-serving, really like finding information that you need, finding out where to dock in, and engaging with the community. So look forward in the coming weeks to those materials coming out and being able to share them with other folks that you all know that might be interested with building with Regen Registry. So I want to say that I'm really proud of this team and being a part of this team, and of the work that we do and what we're all trying to build. I feel like in hearing everybody speak, the big standout themes to me are accessibility and self-service, like being able to create a lot of access points and accessible opportunities, and having that be oriented towards people's deciding for themselves instead of us deciding for them. So I'm really proud that that's this like underlying theme among all that work. So thanks to everybody for sharing out. Now is time. If folks have questions, please pop your hand up, and we'll bring you up. And if not, there's always gobs of things to talk about. So yeah, any questions in the group? You've got the whole registry and science teams here. So shoot away. I see, aside from here we go, I see Ben in the audience. That's awesome. Ed, yeah, let's bring Ed up. We've got a question here. All right, Ed, come on up. What's your question? And feel free to speak to a particular team member or someone in the group.
Did I get called on? I had a little break in the sound for a moment.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So feel free to pose your question to an individual team member or to the group.
Well, when the comment about the vineyards in California, I know that Dr. Jonathan Lundgren has been working for the past few years with the almond growers in California, which is a real critical situation because of the water use and chemical use and lack of water in those areas and stuff. And I know that's been in, I think, about 3 years. Originally there was like no regenerative almonds being grown, and now it's getting really significant. So, and there's I've heard of almond farms as big as 1,000 acres now transitioning. And I know that Jonathan and his crew has been taking a lot of data from those farms. So that's a really encouraging, and of course a big market, and certainly in almond production. So, and the other comment I had is it was an interesting thing I heard about a month ago in a webinar about measuring carbon above, I think this was above a cornfield, a regenerative cornfield. They measured the CO2 level. I'm not sure the height that they went, but in the morning, at a growth state, in the morning, the CO2 level was down in different spots between 100 and 200 parts per million. So in other words, that photosynthesis was really taking up a lot of CO2. Now, you also have respiration of both oxygen from the plant and CO2 from the soils from natural carbon cycling and nutrient, growth in it. So I've been kind of thinking about it recently as to how we could really understand. That might be a really good metric to use to understand, especially for root exudation, because we're discovering more and more that it's not just the plant detritus, sequestration that tends to more cycle, but it's the exudation the roots put out, creating microbial necromass and stuff that may be the longer term and the more valuable carbon. And of course, down in the root zones, especially in regenerative, where roots can go a lot deeper, that's a little harder to measure by regular carbon measurement. So it's opening up a new avenue to sort of think about things, and until we can maybe figure out a way to actually determine exudation flow within a plant and then calculate that over an entire growing season, because that's why cover crops are becoming so popular, because it keeps that sequestration of exudation going all year round and keeps the microbial community robust. So those are a couple of things that I've been thinking about. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing those comments. It reminds me of a lot of a couple of our partners that are working on different methodologies, looking at soil biology and what's happening there. And the CO2 fluxes above the soil layer is pretty crazy and volatile. I wanted to see, Ned, do you have any response, or anybody else in the team, any response to Ed?
Yeah, I thought that was really well put. And that's really sums up a lot of what we're trying to get at with this environmental stewardship approach, where we're not just looking at half of the carbon cycle, the sequestration and storage. We really want to know the activity, what's going on. Carbon is like the energy that makes a lot of the soil things in the plants and all that stuff, makes it all happen. It's that activity that's important. It's not the arrows pointing down in the soil or in the carbon cycle. It's the entire cycle. So that's, I really appreciate that, Ed. And we are trying to embrace those methodologies that take that perspective of this kind of entire ecosystem regeneration approach, rather than just a small fraction of it.
Agreed. Yaupon T, I want to give you some time for a question. What you got?
Yes, hello. Andrew here with Yaupon Tico. First off, I just want to say thank you very much to the whole Regen team, Rebecca, Tika, Sam, and all you developing those methodology guides and videos. I know we're on our side very much looking forward to going through all of that and looking at and comparing with what we've been working on. For anyone that doesn't know, we're a methodology developer as well. We're looking at developing carbon and biodiversity credits from our sustainable Yaupon or tea management and harvesting. But I guess I just had two questions. One of which was for Ned, specifically regarding that working group. And I was just curious, specifically for contact info on that, because I think I really love the focus towards those biodiversity credits and stewardship versus just the carbon. And I think we'd be really interested in teaming up and sort of combining strengths there and looking at that. The second question I had was just, I might have missed it in the first half of this talk, but just specific updates on the Regen Network marketplace itself, and any plans or next steps for that. Thank you.
Yeah, so Ned, do you want to share about connecting?
Yeah, I mean, the best way to connect with me is email still. I'm still not up on a lot of it. Like, I don't normally follow Twitter. So if you can contact me either through the Regen website, or my email would be just ned.horning@regen.network. If you reach out, I would love to set up a call or something and talk more about what you're thinking about.
Okay, wonderful. I appreciate it again.
Yeah, and Andrew, to answer the second question, yeah, Sam was on at the beginning and sharing a bit about it, but I'll take a second to review. So kind of in like preparation for marketplace launch, looking at August, and the functionality within that launch is going to be kind of the selling of credits, the creating of sell orders, being able to list at a fixed price, being able to put them in baskets being able to send those over IBC. So there are a couple different functionality layers that are going to be really, really exciting, and certainly tying in the registry app to the ledger. So look forward to those. 4.0 is launching in mid-July, and then the marketplace in August.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And yeah, very excited to hear all of that, and that IBC will be enabled with it as well. That's super exciting.
Yeah, totally. It will be. Yeah. And I want to see Antonio out there. Antonio, just brought you up, and yeah, the floor is yours for your question. Give him a minute to connect.
After a week.
Hey,
I'm going to be speaking as an ambassador of the Earth Regenerators this week, but I wanted to say my quirk is I'm more of a Reese's Pieces kind of guy. But it did get me thinking. I was at a cacao farm last week and getting a tour, and just how do we kind of narrow that bridge between talking to people who are regeneratively farming and getting them into the regen pipeline. So I would love to talk more about that later, because we could do regen peanut instead of paying money to M&Ms and Mars bar. Anyways, for Earth Regenerators, just really happy to see the news for the foundation delegation go through, and to all the other people that were awarded. So just really excited to see what happens next. For the Earth Regenerators, setting up a nonprofit to receive the funds is kind of the next design surface. And right now we're kind of in the beginning stages of mapping out a refi event post Cosmoverse in Barichara, Colombia. So I'm really excited for that, and also want to just send out an invitation for anybody who wants to join at 12 o'clock. We're going to be having Earth Regenerators update call, and we'll be kind of going over some possibilities for that event. So if anybody wants to join, Joe Brewer at Cognitive Policy on his Twitter timeline, he's got a link to the call. And yeah, so that's all I have for right now, and looking forward to V4.
I love how busy Earth Regenerators. Sorry, you guys got so much going on. It's awesome. Yeah, look forward to connecting with that for sure. But in terms of how to narrow the bridge between people who are regeneratively farming or forcing or fishing to opportunities, I love to give Giselle and Tika a chance to kind of respond their thoughts on what it takes to do that. Giselle and Tika, do you guys want to pop up and just ping back and forth some reflections?
Tika, do you want to start? Or
Go ahead, Giselle.
yeah, I was just thinking it's kind of the urgency we all feel about creating the space for having these conversations and align on what are the present needs and the blockers for the land stewards and the project proponents to be really onboarding credits, right? So I think there's as I was saying, kind of an urgency to start having active conversations, having some conversations with all the stakeholders here in Argentina. But I would love to open it and have some combos. We are trying to think about what's the best strategy, and of course, any ideas welcome. We were thinking about creating the space as a webinar space or forum. We are active in socials as well, but I think this should be addressed in a way that we at the end of the day create the proper solutions and streamline the process.
Yeah, I would echo you, Giselle, on also always open then to ideas and feedback on platforms or modes that work for people, that seem accessible for people to participate in, and give us feedback on ideas of how to make the process more inclusive. I know Sam is actually working a lot on sort of forward funding. That's always a big stumbling block for folks. How do they make this transition? How do they do work while they're making the transition and continue with funding? So along with just accessibility and opening up avenues for people to engage, we're also thinking along those lines as well.
That's awesome. Thanks, guys. I feel like the projects on chain is definitely something we didn't touch on, Tiga, and for the group to know, it's something that that Neil Spockman captures well. It's called the Valley of Death for projects to bring them about, and it's been a need that we've seen, and I think on one side we haven't quite known the right approach, but the idea of bringing projects on chain before they're issuing credits to allow them access to potential seed financing opportunities like NFTs and whatnot is in the works and is looking like kind of a fall launch. So keep your eyes out for that. We really want to be able to open some doors to seed funding opportunities and then being able to weave in that into, alongside producing credits. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Tika. We've got 2 minutes left. If anybody has any questions or share any reflections about things that you're seeing, we've got extra 2. Aside from that, I feel like waiting on anybody else to pop in. Something that that I'm really excited about is next week I'm going to be able to meet with some folks in person that are local. And it looks like we've got somebody popping up, and looking forward to being able to engage with some producers in person around where I am in East Tennessee. But let's bring up Citizen. You've got the last minute, so plug away with your question in the final time. The stage is yours.
I had a question to Ed. First, I wanted to know where his farming location was. And second, whether it still holds true that to have a sustainable family farm these days, it still requires 1,000 acre.
So is the question about kind of what the like the particular area that Ned is in? Because the farm that he was talking about is it's a vineyard in California where they're doing sheep grazing. Is that what what you're speaking of?
I meant Ed, not Ned.
Oh, Ed. Okay. Yeah. Let me bring him back up on and he can respond. He's connecting. All right, Ed, go right ahead.
I'm in the Northeast. I'm in Massachusetts, but I connect with farmers all over the world, and especially the leading farmers in regenerative ag in the U.S., across the Midwest, across the plains, and pretty much across the country. And regenerative agriculture goes by the principles, and that has no relation to size of farm. It's just incorporating the principles into it. So the good thing is that it scales well. And so with a short term before 2030 to, really green up the world a bit, especially desertification and that kind of thing, these large areas of farmland are extremely important, especially with hydrological cycling and droughts and flooding and all that sort of thing. The more we can green, the more we can get cover crops on croplands, the more we can enhance grazing lands to, through amp grazing and stuff to produce more, because a lot of traditional grazing, the amount of growth above ground tends to be pretty short. So you're not getting that real photosynthesis happening that you're really, and the exudation that you really need. So it really has nothing to do with scale. I focus a little more on larger scale because And I always have felt like, the rest of the country, and especially since we give a lot of ag aid around the world, until regenerative ag is the dominant use in the United States, we're still going to be sending Bill Gates packages of magic seeds and jugs of chemicals and fertilizers and everything to other parts of the world. So that's why I focus strongly on the United States. Thank you.
The 1,000-acre threshold is essentially from a farmer in Minnesota who farms corn and soybean rotations. And so now I'm understanding, obviously, in the Northeast, it's a little different. And I haven't really heard Ned and the vineyard requirements. The reason why I ask is because I'm an architect, and with the foundation, I'm working on creating a project sanctuary. And so it starts with the home, where we are looking at prefab homes that are on a smaller scale first, right? That provides the sanctuary with the minimal living requirements to people. And then the next project is a sanctuary that deals with the sustainable farms. So we're looking at like a micro project, and this is like our kind of role model is like a long now foundation. So we're looking at really long term, not a next year solution. And so we're building slowly. We're based in Midwest, and I am trying to learn more about regen community, and especially from the farmers, so that we could reach out and connect in the future.
That's so awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And we're at time, 3 minutes past. So I want to thank everybody for joining and listening in and learning more and being on this journey with us. A big thanks to the team, Tika, Giselle, Ned, Sam, for sharing all of the hard work that we do. And to Citizen, I would encourage you to check out Built on Regen. So if you search at Built on Regen on Twitter, you'll be able to find link to the Built on Regen gallery of projects and all sorts of folks that are building on regen and methodology. So definitely check that out. Thanks to everybody. We will see you next time.